Welcome, everybody, to episode 18 of the Bestselling podcast. Today, we have Adam Lorenzo, TV and movie writer, producer, and published author. Adam, thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast. I'm delighted to have a conversation.
Awesome to be here. Thanks for having me on. I love what you're doing. Trying to help people out. Anybody who's helping people achieve their dreams, I'm all in.
Fantastic. Adam, please share with everybody your journey. How did all this happen? You've had an incredible career. How's this happened and it still continues?
I'll give you a couple highlights that might, inspire possibly anybody who's trying to get in the business. And, a good place to start is I just had my first book released, as I told you, called All I Need to Know I Learned from My College Bar. And it's each page has a lesson that I learned when I owned a college bar while I was still in college, and an illustration. So it's a great place to start because that's where I started. I owned a college bar in college, and in the book, each page has an illustration by Antonio Pina, who's this awesome illustrator. But during the pandemic, I wanted to do something. I wanted to continue to write and try to sell something when the town was shut down. And I had always wanted to write a book about that experience. So I knew nothing about the business. How I got in, I knew nothing about it. I owned this college bar while I was at Syracuse University. I was doing what, everybody in the college bar world does, just working my tail off, and smelling of smoke, because back then you could smoke in, I don't know, can they smoke out there in where you are? Can you smoke?
No, we stopped. You see, this is the thing, Adam. We stopped doing that in about 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
But as I was just become legal, well, not really, to go in a bar, I did get the experience. So really.
Yeah, so brutal. I used to reek of smoke and smell of beer, and just worked every day. I'd type my papers at the bar. I'd leave class early to get deliveries, and it was my life. I actually owned a couple of them, and I always had this dream though of writing inexplicably. I'm from upstate New York, and sometimes, like on your site, I see it's appealing to a lot of different professions in the entertainment business, whether you want to be a TV writer or a book writer or whatever it is. And for some reason, I wanted to write. I had loved it. And in this farm town, it's not like I knew a writer or anything. It was just, I think sometimes people are, chosen for certain things. I'll tell you, it's a funny story. I don't know if I've told this one, but I just thought of it, so I'll tell it. It's a funny thing. I remember it was like Christmas Eve, and I used to drive this great old Alfa Romeo, a black old Alfa Romeo. I loved it. In '86, I bought, and it had a flat tire, and I needed help getting to where I was going. And it's Christmas Eve, and the guy for auto service comes, and he's whistling, so happy, he does it, changes the tire, Merry Christmas, such a happy guy. And I thought, my God, if I was out on Christmas Eve fixing tires, I'd kill myself. I wouldn't want to be doing that. But he was so happy doing it. And I thought, if that guy was doing what I'm doing, which is sitting down, at a computer every day and writing, he'd kill himself. So everybody, I think, has something different, right? 100%. And so for me, it was writing. I always knew I had to do it as a little boy. And, I ultimately was in this world, and I was becoming, I graduated from college, and I became kind of a bit of a big fish in a teeny tiny pond. This isn't Hollywood. You're talking about upstate New York. And I wasn't happy. I just wasn't a happy person. And it doesn't matter. I think I've learned what your outsides look like, because my outsides were okay. Financially it was okay, but I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And so I would look at my reflection in the mirror of the bar, and when I was behind the bar, and I would think, I've got to change my life. I can't do this forever. I was really young, super young. And that's when, I guess I would say, if anybody was watching too, I mean, I graduated and I hadn't written a thing yet. I graduated from college. I didn't even know that this was a career. College certainly didn't educate me about a writing career. I learned how to hustle. I learned how to work extremely hard. I, learned how to multitask and run a business. And, there were 60 some employees, and most of them were older than me. And, you learn those things, which I think have really served me in show business. It's show business. You got to know that. So, I took a risk. And I loved David Letterman when I was a kid. I'd watch it no matter what. I loved Saturday Night Live. I loved those shows. My grandpa was a U.S. Marine, and I lived with them for a while. We'd watch the old TV shows like The Honeymooners, reruns of these things when I was a kid on WPIX. I still remember, in New York City. It came out of New York City. My grandparents were in Buffalo. And, I just decided to call the Letterman show and see how you get a job, and I got really lucky that day. I got, an intern or something on the phone, and they said, you need an agent, or something like that. And I didn't know what they talked about, what that meant. I didn't know what an agent was. I didn't know what they were referring to. And they asked me if I knew a writer. Because they had a joke list, which meant if you had a connection there, yes, you could be on a list and you could send in material, and they paid like $100 a joke for it. And, I didn't know anybody. But, I think about this too. When I was in high school, I was a telemarketer, did a ton of jobs. I was a janitor in a AAA building. I was a telemarketer. I was just hustling pretty much since I popped out. Yeah. So anyway, but the telemarketing, I don't know if you even know what that is. You just
absolutely.
Yeah. So, you get a stack of cold call names, and I'd call and try to sell them magazines, TV guides,
hardcore. That's hardcore.
Hardcore. And they used to smoke in there too, now that I think about it. But, so I'm 16. Wow. And then I'd leave there going to be a janitor at the AAA building. And this was not a cushy youth, but I did learn resilience. I learned to have a thick skin, and, those cold calling people to try to get them to, TV Guide. If anybody who's watching doesn't know what a TV Guide is, it was like a little magazine, with today you see them on, you get all your show times on online, but no one had a way of knowing what episode is tonight, what time, who's on, is it, and it would be in this little TV guide. And, you get destroyed for 4 or 5 hours a shift. No, hang up, go jump in a lake. So I think that muscle really served me when I made that cold call, and when I was trying to get in the business. And I think it's served me ever since. This is a very difficult business. You do have to love it. Not only do you have to be the best of the best. I mean, you have to be undeniably and really good at what you do. You also have to have an incredible thick skin, and you got to really want it, and you can't let anything keep you down. You got to bounce up every day. And so I did that call to Letterman. I didn't know anybody, but that night I had watched the credits, and I just picked a name. A random name. I called back the next day and I said, hey, I know this writer so-and-so said I could be on some joke list. And they said, oh, we love so-and-so. I don't remember who so-and-so was, but I got lucky, and they sent me a release. I signed it, and I started to write jokes and send them in. And I had never seen a script. I had never, written anything, but, I taught myself, and it wasn't long before they told a joke, and then 2, and then 3, and I would get these checks from, the company, and it got the attention of the right people there. And ultimately, I met the producer, of the show. Dave was starting a new show in Los Angeles called The Late Late Show, and I got very fortunate and got put on staff, and they moved me to Los Angeles. They called on a Friday, and I was out here on a Sunday, and I've been here ever since. So I didn't have a car. I didn't know anybody, not a single soul. They pay for your move. They put you in a hotel. It's all Writers Guild who takes care of you and everything. And I'm very proud to be a member of the WGA West. And that's especially important to say right now as we're in the middle of the strike. And I'll be picketing as soon as we get off of this call. And I have a busy day, but it's so important, and it's an exciting time. So anyway, so that's how I got in. And I've just been that kind of hustle, that kind of pursuing what I wanted to do. I've been going at it ever since then. And that's, that was over 20 years ago that I got that first job. Yeah. So, I'm a vested member of the WGA. I got then into sitcom scripted writing, and then I got into movies, and I've sold a few movies. And then, it sounds so easy when you're talking about it for 10 minutes. I got my first job, but there's these periods in between where, like, what you're trying to do, you're trying to connect with people. You're trying to somehow get your work seen. I got my first sitcom job by giving a script to a barber, out here in Los Angeles, who knew a producer on Everybody Loves Raymond. I sold my first movie with, a guy that I met at the gym, so you just don't know. So I like the idea of how do you get, your stuff out there. I know you said you talked to Steve, and he seems like a hustler too. I like that, and he did Hacksaw Ridge, which, what a movie. The original was unbelievable, remake unbelievable. I got to work with Mel Gibson on a show, which was great. I wrote a part for him called Officer Steve Cox that he played. He played like a after school special motorcycle instructor, and I got to hang out, with him and the creator of that show, Mike Scully. He created it with his wife, and we got to work together for a week or two on that. And Mike Scully, if you don't know who he is, was a showrunner and I believe still produces The Simpsons, which is a really awesome show. So it was an honor to work with Mike and Mel. Really knocked it out of the park. That was a little while ago, but it was great. So that's what I do. And then this book came out about a month ago. All I Need to Know I Learned from My College Bar, and it's been over here in LA, it's nothing but press for the book and picketing. Press for the book, picketing, press for the book and picketing. And that's what I do every day is work, at my craft, and continue to try to be the best I can be. And I love the opportunity to try to maybe inspire somebody who's got a fire in their belly for some part of this industry or for another industry,
Absolutely. What's the biggest piece of advice you'd give to a writer right now? Someone that's trying to be in the positions that you've achieved and got to. What would you say to them?
You gotta work harder than anybody. There's no doubt about it. Because I think about it. I still get up as early as I can get up, and I go at it all day. I read every script I can read. I write all the time. I always try to get better. And, and I know a lot of people like that, and that's being established. That's being working for 20 plus years, so you got to work harder than anybody because that's what you're going against. That's who's out there. There are men and women who that's what they're doing all day, every day. So you got to work harder. And when I got in, man, there was this person who told me, and I don't remember his name, but he said, if you could do anything but right, do it, because it's a really hard business, So if there's anything else that can bring you joy, do it. And I get asked all the time, how do you get in? All that stuff. How do you get an agent? All that stuff. How do you sell a script? but it's really good advice. If you can do something else, I didn't like the guy for saying that to me. I thought it was very discouraging. But in hindsight, you do have to love it because you get beat up. It's a tough business. There's ups and downs. I come from a very dysfunctional is an understatement as a kid. So, I had a little bit of an advantage in that, all of this was nothing compared to, the way I grew up. Now, people who come from a loving, nurturing, background with that kind of support, that might be harder. I came in with a very thick skin. Hey, if I was a janitor and selling TV guides in a smoke-filled room at 16, it gives you a little bit of an advantage. You can get kicked around a little and not let it affect you. So I'd say work harder than anybody. And I saw this great interview with, I think, I'm sorry, I don't remember the producer's name. He's a great producer. He did all the airplane movies and stuff. And I think it's him. So on the record, I'm not sure if this was the guy. Okay. But one of the producers on this series said, when people ask him, how do what do you do to get in? He says he always tells the person, it's the worst script he ever read. They have no talent. Don't go do something else. And he said, and then if that person reaches back out to them, he knows they have what it takes. So, you got to love it, man. You got to love it because there's no guarantee. But there's a lot of people who love it, and look, when it hits, and I have nothing but gratitude. When I see my stuff, on film, when I'm watch if I'm on vacation and I see a show of mine appear, or someone says they liked a story or it helped them. I did one of my first sitcom episodes was called Crazy Chin. It was a story I sold to Everybody Loves Raymond about obsessive compulsive disorder I had as a kid. And, so many people have come up to me and told me, oh, they had this thing or that thing. And, everybody's got a little something. So if I can tell a story, I love the environment. It's a passion area for me. One of my episodes was nominated for an environmental media award called Everybody Hates Earth Day. It was on the show Everybody Hates Chris, which was based on the childhood of Chris Rock. Yes. And, that was a thrill to be at the environmental media awards. And I loved being able to tell a story about, recycling and also if you can tell an impactful story with doing a wink and a laugh, that's as good as it gets for me. So, those are the things you get to do. And if you have to do it, that's what I would say, do it. But if you can get that kind of joy, pull teeth. So,
exactly. You're a gladiator, Adam. You're a gladiator. And that's what you need, because those are the positions that you look back on, shape you. I've done, a cleaning aspect myself. I've done many roles, and it shapes you and it hardens you. But I tell you what, it also gives you a compassion. It gives you a compassion for other people because how difficult it is, and you appreciate, I'm going to give that person some respect. I know the journey. I see what it takes, but you've got to keep going. So I respect.
No doubt about
it. You're a very fascinating guy. The college bar. Some people would have just ended the journey there. That's legendary. That's legendary.
Yeah. I knew I had more in me. The whole concept of not dying with your dreams still in you, it always felt right to me. And but I'd see those guys in their 40s and 50s, and look, if they're out there doing it and they love it, I'm so happy for them. But I didn't want to be that guy, drunk and living that life. It's to me, it was an empty life. I had something else. I don't take it for granted that I have a passion and a gift for it. I understand not everybody does, but just like I told you with the guy who changed my tire, that was his thing. Baseball player has his thing, whatever it is. I meet so many fascinating people out here. You see a woman who's got an eye for directing, that's her thing. Look, I think Margot Robbie, I think who she is, right? She's in this new Barbie movie and stuff. She's awesome. I'm pretty sure she got in by cold calling. I think she got her first gig by cold calling a casting director.
That's,
And there are others, and she's probably one of the biggest stars out here, and there are a lot of people, you got to kick down the door, man.
and she's Australian. So she actually has, the American accent to a T, and that's a big thing. It's a big thing.
It is. It's a lot of work.
Sadly, my American accent isn't good enough yet, Adam. I've tried. The say to you, come back when you got a better one. If you had to give one big piece of advice in a screenplay that people miss, that you learned doing it at a professional level, what is it? What is it?
Great. When you say screenplay, do you mean movie, or do you mean are you differentiating between TV series and movie script?
What's the difference?
Oh, well, TV is short, short form. Those are much shorter scripts. It's a different format altogether. So I'll just give you a overall, whether it's a TV script or a movie script, the best piece of advice. And this served me. Now, today, I don't know if it applies as much because I think it's probably more accessible. But when I was coming in, I'd never even seen a script. I used to go to there's a TV museum in Beverly Hills. It has like every episode of TV. You go in, you wear headsets, and you watch them. And I'd bring in a legal pad and a stopwatch to time pages. Like, okay, this is, this is one page, how many jokes per minute, things like that. I really had no idea what I was doing. Then, you could order, you paid like $20 a script or something. I every penny I had, I would buy these scripts, and they had notes on them, and they weren't like great quality scripts, but I would get them in the mail and I would devour them. Then when I became a member of the WGA, they have a library, and it has all the greatest scripts in there, all the Oscar winners and every kind of TV script, movie script. And I'd go in there every day, soon as they'd open, I'd go in, I'd read all day, I'd absorb every script I possibly could. I went in there so much. They had a librarian at the time, and she had an assistant who was a great guy. His name was Jimmy Bangley. He had passed many years ago, unfortunately, but I even went to his memorial service. That's how close I became to these people. And this librarian was very disciplined. You can't bring in food or anything. She cared very much about the scripts, awesomely, which is great. And I have scripts in there now, which is unbelievable. I used to go read them thinking, how can I get in? How am I going to get in this business? And now I have a bunch of them in there. But I read them all. I read every one you could possibly read. But I didn't, it was like such fun for me. I was meant to be there learning. So that's the biggest piece of advice is, now I've heard other guys say, read a lot of bad scripts because that'll give you inspiration that you can do it. I don't know if I would say that, but I've heard that. I would say go in there and read the scripts that you love, the shows you love, the movies you love, study them up and down, and then watch what happens.
Oh, that's brilliant, Adam. So you've got a very big day ahead.
I do.
Just been listening to this. So the college bar, it's a channel on YouTube. Some big faces on there.
College Bar Wisdom, College Bar. Thanks for mentioning that. It's a YouTube channel for the book. I'm very excited about it. College Bar Wisdom.
Fantastic. And if you get the opportunity to read the book, read it. Adam's is a very, very serious guy, and he shows that anyone can do it. But if you're willing, the talent's in you, the fire's in you, and you're willing to never give up. And I appreciate that, Adam. Thank you. All right,
Thank you. Really nice to meet you via Zoom. And until next time.
Thank you. And to all those watching, stay great and be seen. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, pal.